good evening, participants. I extend a hearty welcome to each and every one of you for the sixth day of our 7-day national webinar on gender equality, a prerequisite for sustainable development, organized by the Center for Women Empowerment and Women's Studies of Manonmaniam Sundaranar University in collaboration with Regional Association for Women's Studies. The resource person for today's section is Professor Molly Guruvilam. A short description of her profile. Professor is the founding director and professor at Center for Women's Studies, University of Calicut, instituted in 2005. She has been the head of the department for 11 years. She is the author of the recent Handbook of Research on Gender Mainstreaming and Women Empowerment, IGI Global, California, in which 39 authors from 8 countries have contributed their research findings. She has also authored books like Discrimination Against Girl Child, The Trajectory of Missing Girls, published by Neon Publishers, New Delhi, and the Malayalam book Life Like a Tale, a few counseling experiences, published by DC Books, Kerala. She has also authored a gender training manual titled Towards Sustainable Development, published by the Canada based NGO Save a Family Plan. She has served as a member and national resource person of the UGC National Consultative Committee for Capacity Building of Women Managers in Higher Education and has been the regional and sub-regional coordinator of the same for 8 years. She has adorned several senior positions at University of Calicut, like Director, UGC Academic Staff College, Director, Institute of Tribal Studies and Research, and Chairperson of the University Compliance Committee that looks into cases of sexual harassment in the campus and affiliated colleges. Professor has 80 research papers on various education and gender issues published in reputed national and international journals. She has also completed several research projects in the area. She has presented numerous papers on different aspects of women's life in various national and international seminars. She is an executive member of the numerous research bodies and teachers organizations throughout the country. She is also a member of the Board of Studies of Women's Studies at PG and MPhil levels in various universities and is a member of the PhD Assessment Committee of several Indian and foreign universities. He is a resource person of various government entities like the IMG, Social Welfare Department, Women's Commission, Women Development Corporation, ICDS, Police Department, etc., and that of the in-service teacher training programs of the Department of Education. She is also a research person of the orientation centers. She is well known for her gender sensitization and adolescence education training sections and motivation talks to students and parents. With nearly 3 decades of teaching, research, and counseling experiences, she contributes immensely to the scholarship of education and gender studies. She is actively involved in gender sensitization and men of men and women at various levels and many spheres of public life. She has the credit of delivering of more than 500 invited talks on various gender issues throughout the country. Such an eminent professor is with us, and we are blessed enough to have her for the sixth day as a resource person for the sixth day of our national webinar. More than her academic and career achievements, she is a humane, very nice to move with. Only for the past few days, I've been talking to her. She's such a humanitarian, accessible, flexible, adaptable. So nice to move with her. And Really, it is a gift for us to have you, ma'am, as a resource person for today's section. Such a simple resource person. Very nice to move along with her. The section is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Revati. I hope I am audible and visible.
Yes, ma'am. You are very well
Okay,
audible, ma'am.
okay. So, thank you so much for the kind words of introduction. I am extremely happy to be part of this 7-day webinar series where I could meet my colleagues in the RAWS team, where I am also a member of the executive committee. And also, we are discussing a very pertinent topic, gender and sustainable development. We are passing through a period of uncertainty, the pandemic, where we face the greatest setback to gender equality ever in history. So, definitely, at this critical juncture, we need to discuss more about gender equality and sustainable development. I know the concept of sustainable development might have been well discussed during the last 5 days. Sustainable development is economic, social, and environmental development that ensures human well being and dignity, ecological integrity, gender equality, and social justice now and in the future. This is the definition given by UN Women. And the term human well being refers to all human beings throughout the globe, irrespective of their gender, men, women, transgender, or sexual minorities, class, caste, race, religion, or ethnicity, all come under human well being. So, sustainable development connotes the well being of all these people. And this happiness and well being are to be ensured through active participation and agency of all genders, which calls for gender mainstreaming as the strategy for sustainable development. As we all know, all these 17 sustainable development goals are all interlinked and interdependent. Hence, the efforts to ensure gender equality will have its positive outcomes on the attainment of all other goals. And as per the opinion of the present UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, the former UN Secretary Generals Ban Ki moon and Kofi Annan, all of them opine that gender equality is a precondition, a prerequisite to meet the challenges of reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building good governance. So, today in my session, I will be focusing on education for gender equality and sustainable development. Here, we need to look into how the fourth goal, SDG number 4, which means quality education, contribute to the fifth goal of attaining gender equality. So we need to think about whether the present education system is effective enough in its role as an instrument to facilitate women empowerment and gender equality. If not, what are its drawback or loopholes, the issues, and how we could transform the present system of education as a means for transformation of gender relations. The opening sentence of Kothari Commission states the destiny of India is being shaped in her classrooms. The future of the nation, its peace, happiness, and prosperity all depend upon the nature of education provided to the future citizens through its schools, colleges, and university systems. All of us know education has always been considered as the best weapon for social change. And only education can equip men and women with the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and aspirations required to meet the future challenges of globalized world. Education only can instill the readiness for change in human minds because education makes people flexible, liberal, humble, and develop balanced outlooks in them. Let me check the message because I have got a message coming. Yeah. So this is the only means to know whether you are hearing me properly or not. So sorry. So education has also been considered as the best instrument for facilitating women empowerment and ensuring gender justice. Though the family, education system, media, judiciary, religion, these are all considered to be agents of gender socialization. The educational institutions play the most important role as it is there our children spend majority of their lifetime. But now, during the pandemic, we have seen the role of online education and the family. Both are equally important. Now, let us see whether the system of education contributes to gender equality. It is $1 million question. Development of proper attitudes and values, especially that is required for a gender just society, is an inevitable objective of education. But across the world, education has not always fulfilled its potential as the agent of change, especially with regard to ensuring egalitarian gender relations and in challenging the existing gender inequalities. For example, let us take the case of our own country, India. What is the nature of our education system? Gender equality has been the key objective of the education system in India for the past 34 years. The NP in 1986 The NP in 1886 envisaged, all of us know this is the in on July 29, 2020, India formulated its third national policy on education. Just before 34 years, we had the NP in 1986. It envisaged education as an agent of basic change in the status of women, and it stated that the national education system will play a positive interventionist role in the empowerment of women. Actually, there was this full chapter in the NP in 1986, Education for Women's Equality. After 34 years, let us look into what has happened. The NP stressed the need for developing new values through redesigned curricula, textbooks, training, and orientation of teachers, decision makers, and administrators. But what we see now is this education system has served to improve the educational qualifications of men and women. The educational qualification of women has increased like anything. I am representing the state of Kerala, where the women development indicators are at their best. Here we can see graduates and postgraduates. Almost all women are graduates and postgraduates. Despite having their degree and PG, what is their actual living conditions? So, with regard to enrollment of girls in schools and colleges, some positive changes happened. And some changes with regard to eliminating the gender stereotypes in textbooks. Several Textbook revision committees have happened. All these have happened. But what about the present condition of women? In 2019, last year, the prestigious media agency Thomson Reuters, they came up with a report that India is the most dangerous country for women to live in. The actual truth, it is questioned, but still we all Indians know what is the rate of violence. Day before yesterday, we had a session how the violence against women is escalating. Even the highly educated men, they are meting out violence. The highly educated and employed women, they are facing violence. So this is the actual situation of Indian women. Also, the present education system is entrenched with the gender bias at all levels. Gender bias is visible in all aspects of education, from the administration of education institutions, objectives of education, rates of enrollment, retention, dropout, content of textbooks, classroom practices like dress code or seating arrangements, teacher student interactions, division of responsibilities among boys and girls, both in schools and colleges, disciplinary practices employed by teachers, co curricular activities, the time and space for play and games in schools and colleges, everywhere we see gender bias. What did NPE 1986 say? And what do we see? As a professor at the Department of Women Studies, I have conducted several researches to look into the kind of gender bias existing in our education system. We rarely see women in top administrative positions. Take the number of women vice chancellors, registrars, PVC, controller of exams, the number of women in syndicate, such a pitiable state. Is it because we are not having eminent women academicians? But this is the situation. So, where do our girls and boys see women in administration? Forget about women in political leadership, women in religious leadership, women in corporate leadership. Forget all that. What is happening in the academic leadership? So, our boys and girls, they are getting a kind of notion that only men are capable of decision making. Decision making is the portfolio of men, and women are incapable or something that they shouldn't do. Such kind of impression they receive when they look at their educational administration. Look at the administration of colleges. How many women principals? Except in women's universities and women's colleges, we rarely see women vice chancellors and women principals. So, a sad state of affairs. The gender role stereotypes that schools and colleges reproduce include the notion that girls are generally caring, nurturing, quiet, helpful, considerate of others, and place others' needs before their own. This is true in several women's colleges, and it is quite disappointing. The way they nurture Victorian morality. Of course, when it comes to arranged marriages, we see the preference for convent educated girls. They will be docile, obedient, passive, very submissive. So, such kind of a preference exists in our society. Boys and the parents, they need convent educated girls. And what kind of education is being provided in our convent schools and colleges. Do you think that such an education will contribute to women empowerment, or will it contribute to gender equality? As per the Right to Education Act of India 2019, free and compulsory education is guaranteed for all children in the age group of 6 to 14. And the most recent figures for primary school enrollment of India is quite impressive, a sound 98%. Parental perceptions regarding the education of their children, their role in selecting the institution, the college, the school, or the particular choice of subject, the course for their sons and daughters, they are significant factors leading to gender bias in enrollment and retention. Despite class, caste, religion, and regional differences, boys are mostly promoted to opt for technical subjects. A lesser number of women enroll in mathematics and science, and majority of them join for disciplines like languages, humanities, or home sciences. Throughout the country, we could see programs like medicine or MBA, CA, etc., or engineering, MTech, MS, and all, where boys are readily sent to high fee structured professional colleges, while the girls are sent to low fee paid colleges. When we organize programs at the University of Calicut, where I am a professor, we see that more than 85% of our students, they are girls. So my friends who come as resource persons, they often make a comment, oh, this University of Calicut, the northern Kerala, it is highly advanced. It gives much importance to the education of girls. More than 85% of the students, they are girls. What is the secret behind? Where are their brothers? Their brothers are studying in high fee paid institutions, most often in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Mumbai, or Delhi. In Calcutta University, all the teaching departments, 35 teaching departments, the fee structure is less than 2000 rupees per year. The hostel fee is the minimum. So naturally, the parents send them for the PG courses in the teaching departments of Calicut University. So the uh, what you feel is there is a kind of bias shown by the parents in choosing the institution, the school, or the college for girls and boys. And definitely socio-cultural reasons. We know India is a tradition bound society, and our traditions consider boys as the breadwinners. So the best education must be given to them. And the girls, they are often considered as somebody to be brought up and then married off. So the parents are not ready to invest much in the education of girls. So when we think about the bias shown by parents, this is a reality, the gender bias. So when we think about the dropout, the retention and dropout, there also we see that girls drop out much more than boys. And this is a universal phenomenon. According to the recent data from the UNESCO Institute for Statistics, dropout rates remain high for girls as they struggle with gender disparities at every level of education. Poverty, poor academic performance, migration, and the need to take care of family. These are the major reasons behind the high dropout among boys. While to help with family, work at home, look after the siblings, or marriage and motherhood. These are the major reasons for dropout of girls. Reasons like adolescent pregnancy, taking care of siblings when parents go out for work, fear of violence when the girls walk longer distances to school, lack of bathroom facilities with clean water, high rate of educated unemployed, to engage as seasonal laborers in agriculture, menstruation and related rituals, improper gender role perception of parents, that I said earlier, the fear of parents about adolescent daughters mingling with the boys or having relations with the opposite sex, and the patriarchal notion that a woman's safety could be ensured through her marriage. All these are reasons applicable to the dropout of girls, which are not applicable to boys. In my university also, I face the same challenge. Students at the degree and PG level, they drop out like anything for their marriage and motherhood. And we teachers, we become so helpless to convince the parents. What the parents say? If the students continue their education, finish their degree, PG, PhD, and when they come to the age of 26 or 27, will they get an alliance? That is the question asked. And we teachers, can we say yes, we will bring a bridegroom? We can't say. So we feel so helpless because this is the notion that all the boys get married before the age of 25 in northern Kerala. And this is applicable in several parts of India. So the girls, they have to get married before that. So this overemphasis of marriage, overemphasis of ensuring safety through marriage, that is to be discouraged. So, what I said earlier, the difference with regard to the objective of education. For boys, education has the purpose of enabling them to secure a good employment, start a good business, become economically independent, and become the so called breadwinner. But for girls, most often, higher education especially is considered as a means of time pass till marriage or as a means to get a better alliance. The need of girls for economic independence or gaining a sense of accomplishment or of gaining the happiness in being in service to the family, the society, and the nation. All these are unknown or ignored, neglected by majority of girls and their parents. Now coming to the next context of gender bias within textbooks. More often, the content of textbooks strengthen the traditional values regarding gender roles, where men are represented as active, outgoing, adventurous, and breadwinners, while women are represented as weak, passive, docile, and in housewife roles who are to be protected and taken care of by the strong, efficient men. When are we going to end up with this protectionist approach? We have done lot much of content analysis of textbooks. Some 3 years back, we did a content analysis of the language books of primary schools in the Kerala state syllabus. And you know what the findings? It revealed an underrepresentation of females, denigration of women's roles, male centeredness, gendering of skills, gendering of spaces, and private public dichotomization. We analyzed the pictures only the pictures given in the primary school textbooks. When our children go through these pictures, all of us know pictures have long lasting impression than the words. And in the pictures, what do we see? The boys swimming in a pond, the girls sitting at the back on the bank and wondering at the boys. The boys playing around the playground, the girls sitting and watching them playing. The boys climbing the trees, the girls wondering, how I wonder what you are. So, what is the image that the boys and girls develop from the primary school textbook? So, the gendered notions get strengthened in their minds. Coming to the classroom practices, research findings highlight the gendered classroom practices. We know we have differential seating arrangements, boys and girls in different places, as if they are two separate uh, creatures. The dress code assigned to girls and the women teachers in several of our schools and colleges. And then, even in the classroom practices, how do teachers interact? Teachers interact more with boys. When asked, the teachers say, the boys, they are restless. That is why we are interacting more with boys. And the entire classroom situation is dominated by boys, not by girls. And the mingling between boys and girls, that is also totally discouraged in several of the aided and unaided schools and colleges. Do you think these are all going to facilitate women empowerment and gender equality? If we bring up our children as two separate creatures, two separate species, what is going to happen? And also, when we think about the roles assigned to boys and girls, the boys often become the leaders in schools, colleges, and universities, except in women's colleges and a very few universities, and except the women's universities, men, boys, they become the chairman of the college union, the university union. The girls are often given the vice chairmanship, joint secretaryship. Why it is so? Where are they going to, when are they going to accept girls as equally capable and respect girls as equally capable? If these are the situations followed in our educational institutions, the situation is becoming more and more disappointing. Think about the disciplinary practices. Teachers are very strict with the girls. Boys can do anything. Boys are permitted to roam around, go out of the education institution, but girls are caged. They are not permitted to move around. In several of the women's colleges, the gates are closed. If they want to go out, they have to get permission from several levels. But for boys, this is not applicable. Differential timings in men's hostel and women's hostel. And then we talk about gender equality to be facilitated by our education system. So, these are all the classroom interaction. These are all the classroom practices. Now think about the playground. The boys, they play football. But are the girls permitted to play football? The boys can play throughout the playground. What about girls? They have to sit in the corners of the veranda in schools. In colleges, the girls are supposed to sit inside the classrooms. The girls are never permitted to play at home or in the school or in the college or the university. If it is a women's college or a women's girls only school, things are okay. Otherwise, and then we say girls need to be physically fit, they need exercise. But are we providing them any opportunities? Forget about the home situation. Are we providing any opportunity in our educational institutions? So, students in the school and college and university environments which are filled with gender bias, they develop value systems which are gender differentiated, and they will carry these value systems into their adult life. Researchers also show significant gender role difference in the gender role perception of boys and girls in higher education because of the women empowerment programs, because of the different campaigns we are doing. Our girls have reached a stage of takeoff. They believe in equality, but the boys, I have conducted three major researches, and there are numerous researches conducted in the Indian context which say that our boys are conservative when it comes to gender role, when it comes to whether women should take up employment. Our boys are conservative, but the girls, they say employment is a must, property right is a must, decision making power is a must. What about our boys say? You won't believe. There are numerous papers that I have published working with the investigation conducted in different scenarios. So that is the kind of gender role perception of our boys. So what is the education system contributing to this? If our girls have developed positive gender role perception, it is all because of the awareness campaigns, consciousness raising campaigns, and the women empowerment programs conducted by us, the education institution, also the NGOs, and also because our girls are fed up by seeing the life of their mothers, the centuries old obedience, the centuries old submissiveness, the centuries old lack of decision making power. Our girls are fed up, our women are fed up. So they think changes must come. So this is a scenario of gender role perception. And again, when we think about education as having the potential to bring about readiness to change in the mindset of people, the present education system, it offers very little in this regard. That is why our boys, they are not changing. Despite they are all studying in degree, PG, or what you call PhD levels. So, what I want to suggest here is when the respect for the opposite sex is to be ensured through education, it should begin from the primary level, not at the UG or PG level. That is to be started from the KG, LKG level onwards. Appropriate levels of gender studies or gender justice components at every level of school and college, even professional education. The NCRT, it has responded very positively by including an optional paper on gender studies at the plus 2 level. But there is a danger. When the gender justice components are offered as what you call optional paper, there are minimum takers for it. Why it is so? So, I think the education system, it has three streams: the formal education system, the non-formal education system, and the informal education system. All these systems need to take up a kind of combined efforts in bringing about education as an agency of, as an instrument to facilitate women empowerment, as an agency to facilitate gender equality. So, what we have to do? In the formal system, the formal system has two divisions. One is this curriculum, the clear cut curriculum or the syllabus, where we include programs. There we can include women's studies, gender studies, or forget the title, components on gender justice at all levels, as I said before, including MA, MPhil, PhD, and all. And luckily, in our country, we have almost 159 women studies centers in the university system. So, and in some of the colleges, we have women studies centers, but that is not enough. We must include women studies as a foundation, mandatory foundation course. When I tried to include gender studies as a mandatory program, as a foundation course in Calicut University, there was so much of objection from my colleagues, especially the friends belonging to other disciplines, the faculty members. They make arguments. Who is going to teach? We are already overburdened with the syllabus. The other disciplines will lose their teaching hours. So we don't need any more women's studies. That kind of an attitude I could see very well. But fortunately, in some universities, we have a foundation course. It will be very helpful to develop egalitarian thoughts, democratic values in our boys and girls. At least a 2 credit course. That is a must. But who is going to implement it? All of us. What I feel is when the protection of the environment was realized as an inevitable need for sustainable development, the education system responded to it by including environmental education as a mandatory curricular component at all levels of education. But now, especially during the pandemic, we have realized how gender equality and gender justice are essential requisites for peaceful living and sustainable development. So, the education system has to respond positively by including the so called gender justice components. And even when including such components, who are going to transact the curriculum? Teachers, they are considered as social engineers. They must be committed to reduce the gender role stereotyping through their behaviors, classroom practices, language, interactions, informal communication with children. Everywhere, the teachers have to communicate the need for gender equality. But being brought up in a patriarchal world and having internalized the patriarchal values so deeply, the teachers and the educational administrators unknowingly they are perpetuating gender stereotypism and propagate patriarchal values. In some of our studies, we have had focus group discussion with teachers. You won't believe the way the teachers communicate their ideas regarding notions regarding women empowerment and gender equality. For them, feminism, it is an utopian idea. Gender equality, it is nonsense. Women are, after all, they are women. Please think about if such teachers are going to interact and transact the curriculum, what kind of notions or values will the students develop? So, components related to gender justice must be included in the pre service and in service teacher education. In the formal education system, we have the so called hidden curriculum, where if the teacher is gender sensitized, the teacher can make use of any content to transact the values, transmit the values of gender justice to the students. but they need to be gender sensitized. And then comes the informal education. That is what is happening in our families, in our media, religion, judiciary, everywhere. From the peer group, we are getting informal interactions and informal transmission of values and education. But what is the condition of our families? While I was visiting the universities in Canada and Denmark, I never see any kind of gender studies in their schools or colleges or universities, except in their PhD, postdoctoral, and all. So I used to ask the professors there, you are not having any gender studies courses, but your students, there is so much of egalitarian relations, democratic relations. The boys respect girls equally. How this happens? So the professors used to tell me, our children learn all values of gender justice from our family. What about the children in India? From the family, whether they could see role models of parents who respect each other. In how many families we could see the father openly respecting the mother. Definitely, based on our cultural traditions, the mothers, they will be respecting the father and they will be training and teaching the children to respect the father. But in very few families only, we will notice the fathers training children to respect mother and the father openly respecting his wife. So the informal education chances for gender equality are very rare from the family. What about media and religion? Everywhere we see these are all pillars of patriarchy which transmit the gender stereotypes. The media is the strongest agent. I don't want to explain it because we are all thorough with it. What is the kind of men women relationships we see in the movies, in the serials? We are all thorough. So there is no scope for informal education in the present socio-cultural setup to provide role models for school-going boys and girls, college-going boys and girls. Now, we see that the enrollment of women in primary education has improved over the years throughout the globe, and we could attain the Millennium Development Goal number 3 to a great extent, universalization of primary education, except in some of the African countries. Now, when we formulated the SDG number 4, the quality education, it has emphasized the focus to be shifted from primary education to secondary and higher education, including professional education. There I have a question. Mere earning a degree, will it ensure women empowerment? As a woman from Kerala, where we have 100% literacy and high educational standards, I could very clearly say no. In Kerala, everywhere we are having women with degree and PG. There are thousands of girls who, despite having a degree or post graduation, they remain unemployable. The self confidence to project one's worthiness, the inevitable digital skills, the willingness to move around or migrate to another part of the country or to another part of the globe, effective communication skills, networking skills, these are all demanded by the present day employers. But our education system fails to ensure the employability of the student community. Also, the students lack the correct attitudes, the aspirations for an appropriate career. Nursing, teaching, and clerical jobs, they were the most preferred jobs for women in the past. But now things are changing. At least there is a minority of women who venture into non traditional areas. The socialization received from the family, media, religion, etc., determine the smartness and readiness of girls in this regard. That's why I said a minority. But is that enough? Making quality higher education accessible and affordable to girls belonging to every class, every caste, every religion, every region. That is the major challenge in the present society to achieve the goal of women empowerment and gender equality. We know the lack of skills, the lack of quality education, it has resulted in women getting employed in bulk in the non-formal sector. During the pandemic, we have had so many webinars. What is happening to our women in the informal sector? Big job loss, heavy setback to gender equality, women empowerment. It's all because they lack the skills, they lack whatever I mentioned earlier. So, we need to correct all these in our education system. Also, when we speak about the non formal education, see, even this webinar, this is a form of non formal education, something not included in the syllabus, but in addition, it is going on. You know, when this lockdown started, the UGC came up with the directions to all higher education institutions. You must organize 1 month webinars on gender sensitization, not on digital technology or science, but gender sensitization. That is the burning issue. That is the most important need of the hour. So we are organizing good number of webinars in order to bring out changes in mindsets, to bring out consciousness raising. When people attend and discuss such issues in such forums, even the NGOs, they are doing brilliant work. But we need more of such work, the non-formal education programs. Then only we can reach the masses. So here I am trying to wind up the 21st century. As I often say, it is considered as the century of the feminine. The women power and the need for women's agency in sustainable development. It is acknowledged and acclaimed in a manner that has never happened before in the history. At the same time, the resistance to women's emancipation and progressive ventures is stiffer in the form of violence, gender based violence. And it is applicable to women both in the private and public spheres of life. New forms of violence, the cyber crimes, they are creating fear, and this fear is having drastic consequences. And how these crimes shoot up. The inability of men, most often, and a few women, to accept the need for women's participation, to accept and respect women. That is the major issue. So, to minimize the negative impacts, our girls should be equipped with better digital skills, along with awareness about one's rights, the legal awareness to live a beautiful life on this beautiful earth. For this, capacity building of girls and women through legal literacy, media literacy, digital literacy, everything is essential. A combined effort of all of us, including women themselves, including men, the politicians, religious leaders, NGOs, academicians, all is the need of the hour. Above all, the gender bias embedded in our culture. It is to be eliminated. We have so many examples of gender bias that existed in our culture. Once we realize that these are wrong, we must have the willingness to change. And that is to be ensured by the participation of men, women, boys, and girls. So, I am so hopeful that our deliberations on these webinars will help us to become gender sensitized about the need for how to change the education into a platform, into an instrument that facilitate women empowerment and gender equality. And that it was at this time that the NEP 2020 came up. And it has contributed very little to facilitate the attainment of gender equality through education. As I said earlier, NEP 1986 had a full chapter, but NEP 2020 is not having any chapter except a few passive references on gender consent, one or two words on women empowerment, one or two words about egalitarian men women relations. But still, I am hopeful. All the universities, all of us are giving recommendations to the government to bring about changes. So, hope all of us together will bring about a difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mom, for your emotional and informative address. As you said, education is the only rescue for women. If we educate a woman, the entire family gets the benefit of it. And all forms of literacy for a woman in all spheres, at education, legal, financial, digital, at all levels, is the way to empower women. Ma'am, there are two or three
Yeah.
questions put forth in the chat box. Mr. Suresh,
Can you?
he has raised a question. Madam, do you think
Okay.
education is the only remedy for gender inequality?
Gender
Is
equality.
edu-
Yes.
no, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. Education is the only remedy to equality. That is in the broader sense. But there are people who are not educated in the formal system, but they are educated through the informal and non formal means. So, education, of course, is the only remedy, and formal education is not the only remedy. So, what Suresh is intending is he might be asking whether formal education is mandatory. Several of our forefathers, several of our foremothers, they were not educated in the school or colleges, but they were well aware about the need for respecting the opposite sex, about the need, about the power of women, about their innate potentials. They didn't go to school, but they understood it. And that has happened through the two other streams that I mentioned, formal, informal. So they have learned it on their own through their thinking, through their thoughts, through their reading. So formal education is not a must, but that is the easiest way because in sustainable development, goal number 4 says we need to provide quality education because that is the best way to attain sustainable development and that is the best way to promote gender equality. If it is not there, there are other ways. Instead of the formal system, we could learn from our families, provided we have parents with such progressive thoughts. If we are not having parents with progressive thoughts, what is going to happen? If we are not reading, what is going to happen? So, formal education system is not mandatory, but that is the best means to facilitate women empowerment and gender equality. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, there is another question from Tiribura Sundari. Her question is, Dear Madam, thank you for sharing the painful truth of reality. Exactly, ma'am. Changes must occur from primary level. Madam, do you believe feminism can change the system?
So, here I am required to speak about feminism. Feminism, I think, is the particular philosophy that is most misinterpreted throughout the globe. Feminism actually is a divine philosophy. Divine in the sense, people who believe that men and women are created by God. God has shown distributive justice by instilling equal capacities in men and women. The Creator has never shown any discrimination. And feminism is an ideology, a philosophy which believes in the equal abilities of men and women. It believes that wherever there is discrimination, it must be corrected. And it can be corrected in different using different strategies. Education is one strategy, writing is another strategy, poetry or filmmaking is another strategy. Different forms of strategies are there adopted by feminists, but all of them aim at one thing: ensuring egalitarian relations, providing equal opportunities to men and women, ensuring gender equity. Whoever is lacking must be given more. So, feminism, it is the underlying philosophy of women empowerment. It is the underlying philosophy of gender equality. So, we need to correct it because that much of misinterpretation is happening to this divine concept. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation and having been with us for nearly more than 1 hour. And thank you for your patience in answering all the questions put forth in the chat box. Thank you for your kindness, your accessibility, and your friendliness. Thank you, ma'am. My dear
Thank you.
participants, thank you for your participation, even during a government holiday. Thank you for your support, my dear participants. Tomorrow is the final day of our 7 days webinar. Kindly extend your cooperation tomorrow also, and kindly fill up the feedback form of the final day so that you can get your certificates. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again, ma'am. Thank you for all
Thank
your
you, Dr.
support, ma'am.
Revati, for inviting me. Thank you, all participants, for your patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.